Hello again. In today's video, I want to explain a solution that we have in Sony, which is called C3P or Portal, previously known as XDCAM, but now it has been improved, which is basically a system, a cloud-based system that allows us to work via two main workflows, let's say. One of them is the live configuration, in which you have several inputs to the system via IP, and you can output them via IP also, or into an RX1 server, which is the one that will provide you in your studio, your facility or your venue, an SDI, a couple of SDI outputs that you can match to via, let's say, a virtual matrix to the camera inputs. That is for the live configuration. Apart from that, you have a clip-based operation in which you can recall, you can basically manage clips that they can be either in high res, and high res can be 4K or Full HD, or on the other side, proxy files. And thanks to that, you can even start your editing if the clip has not even been closed. I will explain that later. So for this system, for the Portal, the most capable cameras as of today, and today is December the 31st, 2021, are the FX9, which is the one I am taking this shot from, and the Z280, which is the one that I'm going to use for the explanation. If you have the XDCA in the FX9, you will have the same connection features that you have in the Z280, which are, you can connect via Wi-Fi, which is the solution I have here. I am connecting that camera and the Z280 via Wi-Fi to a MiFi dongle that I can have here in tabletop configuration, or I can have it in my pocket. It's a very typical way to connect. The second one is probably the most reliable one, which is using the RJ45 connector that you have in the rear side of the camera, or in the XDCA FX9. And then that way, obviously, you can connect to a switch or a router and directly go into internet if you have output into internet. And the third one, which is probably the simplest one, is via a dongle or a couple of dongles that you can connect to the USB ports that you have, again, in the rear side of the camera in the Z280, or in the upper side of the XDCA FX9. Those two dongles can be even from, well, or we recommend them to be from different IP providers or ISPs. Because, for instance, here in Spain, the typical ones, I would say, are Vodafone and Movistar. It makes sense to have one dongle connected to one network and the other one connected to another one. But for knowing which dongles are compatible with our cameras, please ask us, because not all of them are compatible. Also, bear in mind that you will need, via the typical embedded application that you have in the dongle, if you connect it to a laptop or a regular computer, you will need to remove the pin access so that the camera can directly use it as a gateway to connect to the internet. Okay, so now we have our camera connected via Wi-Fi. Let me record the menus from the camera, which will make our explanation much easier. So now you can see in the upper side of the screen that we have the Wi-Fi logo totally lit in white color. This means that it has a very good range, network range, and obviously it's very close to the camera, so it makes sense. But on the other side of the screen, you will see, let me move the camera, something that sometimes lit in white and now it's in dark gray, which is NCM. NCM stands for Network Client Mode, and it's the official way to call our the application that uses the protocol, the QoS, Quality of Service Protocol, that we have optimized for video. This means, let me stop the recording. This means that the camera can receive feedback from the system, from the cloud, let's say, in order to know the network environment that it has around it. According to that environment, the camera will adapt, or the important word, conform the traffic according to that environment, to that data. And that data is fed back from, as I was saying, from the system, according to two main criteria. First one is the delay on the signal. The delay in some environments, like for instance sports, is critical. So in that case, in fact, one of the improvements that we have in the portal related to XDCAM is that now we have reduced the delay to a minimum of 0.7 seconds, meaning that from the moment that the signal is inputted in the sensor until the moment that it is outputted in, for instance, in the RX1 server BNC connector, that in our case we will have in Prague for this demo, there will be less than 1 second. That is very important. The other parameter that we can play with is the what is called in the portal interface the bandwidth, but in other words is the picture quality, because maybe if we have a very relevant person that we are making an interview to, maybe the picture quality of the background of all the address show we have, maybe it's even more relevant than having, let's say, 0.2 more seconds delay for those cameras. Okay, so according to those two parameters, we can conform the traffic from each one of the cameras, because maybe this camera is in a very hostile or electromagnetically hostile environment, and there is another one which is directly connected via LAN to a very nice upload trunk. Okay, so it depends on the camera and its environment. So now, again, coming into the camera menu, you will see in the upper side that the NCM that I was talking about has a white cross over it. Why is that? Because now the camera, I was playing with the configuration and I was knocking at the portal door, but the portal door has not yet been opened for this camera. That is something that the administrator of the network needs to provide to the camera. So coming again to the camera, as I was telling you, in the main menu, in the main menu, you will find the network menu, and in the network menu you will see the wireless LAN, which is set to ST mode. ST mode stands for station mode, meaning that the camera is going to be the a slave to a Wi-Fi access point. If you want, for instance, the camera to be connected to, or your mobile phone to be connected to the camera, but you won't have a Wi-Fi output from the camera, then you can set the camera to access point, which is the other option that we have. In that case, the camera will create a Wi-Fi environment to which we will connect our mobile phone. This is not the case, so let's go back to the configuration. That is regarding the wireless LAN. Then in the station mode settings, I simply will look for the network. I will input the password, and that's all. It's very easy. And the third thing to configure in this case is the network client mode. In the network client mode, we can choose from 3 profiles that I can previously configure. And this is very important. Don't make the camera operator do that on field, because he or she will get totally mad. This is something that you have to have previously configured. So now, as you can see, I have selected the C3 portal. If you want to see the parameters, basically there are 4 parameters and some other options, but the 4 parameters are the access point, port, username, and the password. This is provided by the system, by the administrator of the portal. So obviously this is something, well, it's not very difficult to get. It's just 4 parameters. But now in the version 5 for the cameras with or the version 3 for FX9, there is another way to connect, which is the camera. It can show a QR code that you can scan under the C3 portal application. You will scan it, and as you have the credentials inputted via this way, which is obviously much more friendly than the camera menu, then you will simply connect the camera to that to the portal. Also, I was talking about the dongles, by the way, and now you can use also the USB connection from your mobile phone to do a tethering and use the mobile phone as if it was a USB dongle. Okay. So as I was telling, there are 4 parameters. These ones: the address, the port, username and password, and then apart from those ones, there are 2 which are very important. Camera control enable. Thanks to leaving this parameter in enable mode, we can control the camera from the portal. Otherwise, maybe the camera operator doesn't want to have that delegation of the control, or doesn't want to happen ever, and therefore obviously the camera operator can control it, but if it is in enable mode, it can be also not only from one side or the other, but it can be controlled also from the portal. And finally, the camera setting. Camera setting is something that I can select to be to be set to always, just once, or off. I usually leave it in always, because that way at any moment somebody can apply some configuration to our camera, and then that person can help us to have let's say the cameras paired among them, because we are in a multi-camera production, for instance. I will talk about that later. And those memories about the cameras sorry, are stored in the portal. Okay, so as simple as that. Okay, now I will cancel, but it was already inputted. And obviously we need to leave it into on or off. In the left side of the camera, you will see that you have, I don't know if this camera will be recording this, I have a blue LED that can be blinking if something is trying to connect to the portal, or totally blue if it is in the portal already been accepted, let's say. So that is something that I can do via a regular button like this one online, or by setting this to on, this menu to on. Okay, so regarding what is going on in the camera, this is all. So I will stop recording the menus. Okay, now let's go into what we have in our interface in the portal. For that, I will allow me to record via OBS what's going on in my screen. Okay, so this is, if you have ever worked with XDCAM, this is something that will be quite familiar to you, because it has more or less the same tabs in the upper side. There are some slight differences, but we will go through all of them. The first one that I want to explain, despite it is not the most funny one, unless you are a nerd like me, is the Settings tab. In this Settings tab, obviously, is where you can configure everything related to our portal, to our system. So over there, you will see that we have a general configuration, for instance, in which you can set your time, if you want to, for instance, to take one signal in the live tab and drop into an output, and thanks to that automatically start the streaming, different things. I won't go into all of them. Okay. The second one is credential. Credential is a critical one because it has the data that will allow us to configure our systems, our transmitter and receivers, to be connected to the camera. Remember, this is based, it is cloud-based. So the physical equipment that we will connect to it are cameras, are mobile phones, are the RX1 receivers, but all of them need to knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here, can I get in? And then they will need an username and a password. For instance, for the transmitters, aka cameras, or there is another transmitter, which is the CBKWA100 or 101. Is like a little box that has an SDI input, has an SD slot for recording proxies, and a couple of USB ports that are equivalent to the ones we have in the XDCAM FX9 or the Z280. Okay, so transmitter can be camera, CBK. Therefore, we can connect any camera via SDI or mobile phones. Okay. XDCAM Pocket is the credentials we will need for the mobile phone. Receiver are the PWS 110RX1A or any other model equivalent to that. And also we can connect a planning metadata system that is connected, and therefore it can synchronize the metadata so that it is included in the clips that are recorded in the cameras. Okay, so this is basically passwords and usernames for each one of the equipment hierarchy, let's say. Auto assign, this is something that every time you connect one camera, for instance, automatically it will go to an output. Okay. Upload. This is very important because, for instance, in the camera, and let me record again, we can obviously select to record a proxy, and that is something that we can select here. Proxy recording. If I leave it into on, every time that the camera will record a high-res file, again, it can be a 4K or a Full HD file, well, 4K UHD, okay. Automatically, there is a MP4 file, much more manageable, much lighter, that I can use, for instance, for editing. And also, I can directly upload it into an FTP, okay? Also, you can see that we can do a chunking. Chunking means that as the file is growing, the proxy file can be split, despite in the end it can be a whole file, a very long file, but it can be split in portions of 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 2 minutes. Therefore, if, for instance, there is a press conference, you can start editing the material even if the whole clip has not been closed. And this is very important. This is one of the improvements we have included in the portal respect to XDCAM. And also the quality, which is very, very important, can be up to Full HD at 9 megabit per second. Meaning that, for instance, in a country like mine, in Spain, terrestrial transmission in HD can reach, as of today, up to, let's say, 6 megabit per second as a maximum. So our proxy can record at higher quality than that. Bearing in mind that today in the news we have vertical recording from mobile phones, very chunky materials being aired, it makes sense that in some cases, instead of using that sentence, that dogmatic sentence of editing proxy rendering high res, it can be edit in proxy and leave it in proxy, and you will render for instance, during the night, so that you have your library at the maximum quality that for broadcasters as of today uses to be 50 megabit per second. Okay, so this is how to create the proxy, and also in the network menu, you will have the file transfer. File transfer allows me to automatically upload the proxy files into an FTP. And that FTP can be one out of 4 options. These are the 4 options. So I can set manually any FTP that I can, for instance, upload into Sony Cloud Sony CI, or my own FTP that has a gateway with a fixed IP address, for instance. But apart from that, we can have the FTP that is directly linked to our portal, and that way, every time that a clip is uploaded and says, okay, where is my FTP? Automatically, the portal will tell to that file, go into this repository, to this bunch of files, or to this folder. Okay, so automatically we can do that. Let me stop the recording. By the way, let me also confirm that I am recording. Yes, okay. So now you can see that we can have those proxies automatically uploaded, and I am going to shoot some little clips that are not going to be uploaded right now. Why? Because now we haven't still opened the door to this camera so that it can automatically upload into the portal. Remember that the camera has knocked on the door of the portal, but the portal has not been opened yet. We will do it later. Okay, so this is the screen for upload. Cloud recording is simply what you have in the streaming output from the live tab. Okay, you can automatically record what is being aired through that output. Also, you have the chance to use an intercom, but the intercom in the camera side, it needs to be connected via USB, so you will sacrifice one of the USB connections. And also, it makes sense to use just one headset, which is typically connected to the camera via a mini jack. If you need to have another one, you can have it, or for instance, for some jobs, it makes sense. But honestly, I think that the intercom is not something that is widely used in XDCAM and probably won't be used widely also in Portal. Now we will go into the resource sub-tabs, which is basically the way to assign a user to a group, and then there is another one, which is the user with different profiles. So for instance, now here we can see that we have a default group that, as far as I remember, is the group that I belong to. Yes, you can see myself here. So thanks to this, I can create different groups. For instance, this way, new group, test. Okay, I have created a new group, and then I can assign people to that test group. Okay, nowadays there is nobody here, obviously, because I have just created. How to include people or users into that group? For instance, if you go into my profile under the user menu, I can assign myself to that group, and I can provide myself all the permissions to that group. Save, and okay, now it's done, and I should see the same or some coherent information here under group. And if I go into test, sorry, because it's refreshing, if I go into test, I can see myself here. Okay, so very, very easy. In the C3 Portal app, it says which are the terminals, the mobile phones mainly, that have been connected to the C3P Portal app that you have available in Google Play, for instance. Transmitter, and this is a very, very important tab. Here is where I can see all the resources. I was going to say cameras, but I prefer to say resources, like a mobile phone, an FX9, a Z280, that have been connected to my profile, to my group, ever. Okay, so for instance, you can see here many of them, and you will see here that there is a camera that doesn't have a name yet, doesn't have an assigned group, and which is pending. Why? Because it is this camera. Remember that now it has still the NCM logo in dark gray, meaning that it is not yet connected. But if I change the parameters here, it will turn into white, meaning that I am opening the door. I will record what happens in the camera. So for instance, let me write here set to 80 Alvaro. I will assign it to the default group. Okay, and now it is registered. Okay, if I press save, at some moment you will see that the camera changes from NCM in dark gray into white, because now it has been registered. Meanwhile, let me go into the receiver. Receiver are the PWS one rack unit servers that we have connected to the systems. Those servers have 5 BNC interfaces. One of them is for synchronizing, because for instance it is very typical to have them in a studio. Then they have output 1 and 2, which are the same, and 3 and 4, which are the same. Why? Because it's very typical to use one of those pairs of outputs to have a control monitor, a picture quality control monitor. Those are the typical pieces of equipment that we will have, as I was saying, in the studio, in the central, or in the different stations that we have across our facilities. Okay, so it's very typical to have one of them in the central one and another one or ones in several locations in which you will need to have an output into a video matrix or a video switcher or whatever equipment that you need to have via a SDI connection. Let me see what's happening with the transmitter, because probably I will need to change from, yeah, it's from registered. I think I need to change it to ready. Well, probably I will need to restart either the camera or the system. Another thing, planning interface. This is, for instance, for working with a metadata. I'm not very expert on this, so please allow me to pass it very fast. The planning metadata is something that we can get from an external system like an Octopus, and there is an API or gateway that can adapt those metadata into our system, and therefore you can create different metadata, different stories that can be ingested into the camera and therefore inserted into the clips. FTP server, obviously we can have our own FTP. This is the one that by default the clips are going to be uploaded to if they are in the auto upload mode. Or if we go into the asset or the transfer tabs, we will see some clips that are inside of the cameras, and we can move them into that FTP. It's a bit tricky right now, but when we go into those two tabs, I will explain it better, I hope. Also, as this system is based in Amazon Web Services, obviously we can assign an S3 bucket, so that we can store all the contents into that bucket, obviously. And as Amazon is providing this, also we have our own C Media Cloud, which is like a virtual FTP. In fact, if you open an account, you will have something like 5 GB that you can play with, and you can configure your camera to upload your files. Even if you are not belonging to any corporation or production house, if you are freelance, that is something that can be very fancy for you. Also, you have an ingest server, okay, and you have a watermark preset. For instance, my colleague and friend Uli Morse has his own logo. It has been uploaded here, and it can be inserted in the output of our streaming. I will show you later, so that it has a watermark on it. But this is not the tab in which we can upload those files. This is later. I think it's where. Well, I will tell you later. Also, an important part, and for me this is critical. As you can see, we have our cameras, our two cameras connected. By the way, it is in white color. Okay. So, for instance, what we can do is to create let's say, a snapshot of the camera configuration, and we can apply that snapshot to different cameras. Or we can, if there is a snapshot, an all file is the name. If there is an all file of a configuration that we like a lot, we can copy that configuration into this camera. How to do that? For instance, now set to 80 Alvaro. We can backup or restore. If we backup, we can call it, I don't know, Alvaro set to 80 and set to 80 test as description. Okay, we can create, and now the camera is sending the all file into the memory, the internal memory that the system has. We can do that also, for instance, with the FX9. But bear in mind that obviously if you have Asset 280, you can only apply Asset 280 configuration and vice versa for the FX9. If now we want to restore an old configuration into this camera, we can select from this list what we want to do. And for instance, this is the configuration that I have just created. Okay. How to erase or manage those old files, those snapshots? It's in this tab, in the camera all file, and you can see here all the configurations, and the one that I have just created is this one. It talks about the camera version, and there is a little description that I inputted here, and obviously I can remove it, as simple as that. Okay, so backup and restore. What is this useful for? For instance, imagine that you have elections in your country, and you have one camera in the south, another in the north, and all them are more or less matched, but there is one of them that is totally mismatched, and there is a problem with the camera. Instead of bothering the camera operator, you can tell her or him, leave it in the ground. I will apply an all file configuration, which is the aesthetic we have created for the elections, for instance, and done. And that is something that takes something like 5 seconds or so. So very, very easy. Or the opposite case. Maybe you have a camera that in the morning it is shooting some documentary. During news time at noon, it will go into news, and in the afternoon it will go into a fictional production. So you can apply different profiles to the camera independently of the camera operator. You have your profiles created in the system, and you can apply each one of them differently depending on the moment of the day. Apart from that, you have the story metadata. You can create different stories. I'm not an expert with this, so simply you can create stories that will be ingested in the metadata, and the planning metadata here. So we can create different things to be applied to the camera. Again, sorry, because I'm not an expert on news metadata. Also, as you may remember, we can upload the files and we can manage the files. That is something that we will see later. But we can select a retention time, which is the time that they will be in the system. This portal means a monthly fee, and one of the items that can be monetized is how much storage space you need. So for instance, maybe you want to remove all your assets every 30 days because you have made a different backup, or you have removed them, or whatever may happen, and you don't want to jump into a bigger the next step in terms of storage monetizing money to pay. So you can do that. Also, if at any moment you exceed your limit, don't worry, because next month we will talk to you. Okay, the prior month you exceeded it in so many gigabytes, so you need to pay, but you won't lose those materials, obviously. So you can set a recycle bin. You can delete everything, or you can do it manually. Obviously, my recommendation, at least in the beginning, is to leave it in manual way. Camera all file, that is what I was talking to you about before. Story, these are the stories that have been stored. So this is the proper way to, for instance, to remove them via the trash bin. And also there is a dashboard. The dashboard shows me how many connections have there been with cameras, mobile, pocket application, number of gigabytes, blah blah blah. The typical management system for the portal. Now let's go into one of the funny. Firstly, let's go with the planning metadata. Obviously, here you will see that we have different stories, and we can select this story, we can select this camera, and we can assign that story to the camera so that the ancillary metadata are ingested into are inserted inside the clip metadata. And now let's go into the funny procedures. Here you can see that we have two cameras. We have the Z280 that I have here. We have the FX9 that you can see there. In fact, you can see that it is recording. That is why you have a red dot here. And you can see this tab as if it was a matrix, an input-output matrix. So we can assign, for instance, this signal to one of the outputs. However, unfortunately, my colleague Pavel is not available today, probably, and those servers are offline. The two servers that we have in Prague, in a regular situation, they will be online, and so I could drag and drop an input to an output, and automatically it would start the output via the SDI 1 and 2. Remember that one of those two outputs are going to be used for a quality monitor, or 3 and 4. This is for the server number 1, let's say. There is another server, which is the Prague 2, again with two outputs and two outputs which are addressing the same signal. But apart from that, we have other outputs. For instance, Uli Moore's YouTube, my YouTube channel. I think it's outdated, so now I could even delete this one, okay, because now it's no longer in use. But I can create very easily another channel via IP. How to do that? I can say, for instance, YouTube Alvaro. It is inside my default group. Remember that I belong now to two different groups. This is the output signal format, and I want to do a streaming through the internet. Do I want to insert a watermark like the one that Uli Moore's provided? It would be here in the list, but here we have only one PNG. Okay, and apart from that, we can have up to two simultaneous outputs. For instance, maybe one is Instagram and another one is YouTube. In this case, what I'm going to do is to create a YouTube output. We can select the type of output. For instance, let's go into this one. Endpoint and string key are a couple of parameters that YouTube, in this case, provides me. Where I go into my YouTube account, I can create a live transmission, sorry, because it's in Spanish. And when I create a live transmission, here in the lower side of the screen, you will see both parameters. One of them is this one, which is generic, so I can copy that and paste it here, and we can create we can copy also the stream key. I'm not going to show that because anybody could take it. I can reestablish in the future, but it's simply to copy that and paste it in the stream key, okay? And then I would push create, as simple as that. It's very, very easy. It can be, as you can see, MPEG-TS, or it can be RTMP. For instance, if you have a website in which you want to have a video 24/7 running with what's going on in front of the camera. For instance, here in Spain, we had a Vulcano. It ended a couple of days ago, officially. But in that case, it's very dangerous to have a camera operator close to the camera. In that case, maybe you want to risk the camera, but leave it 24/7, feeding our live signal in our website. In that case, you can leave it in RTMP, and for instance, you can simply create the endpoint from that website, and that is those are the parameters to input here. Okay, so very, very easy. In the right side, if I have that signal assigned to an output, you could see here a monitor in which I can see the bandwidth. I can see the maybe you remember I was talking about the picture quality, aka bitrate, aka network range. Okay, so here we can set the different qualities, or we can use the delay that, as you can see, it can be up to very short, less than 1 second. Also, we can have different outputs and ancillary sub-outputs. Okay, we can record, obviously, but this is something that is shown in white color when there is an output that I can use. Apart from that, maybe you remember I told that in the camera you can set that the remote operation is enabled, and that is something that we can do here. So for instance, now with let's say this camera, maybe we want to do a zoom in, zoom out. Obviously it depends on what parameters are set to manual operation in the camera, because for instance, if you have the camera in autofocus mode, obviously you cannot do the autofocus. But as you can see, now I am playing with the zoom in this camera, and you can see that in the miniature here, okay, in the little thumbnail. And also we can see the GPS information. Oh, I will need to edit this in post, because I don't want anybody to see my address. And also you can see where are the cameras connected to the system. This is something that is a bit controversial, because it's very nice for the manager of the portal to know where the resources are, but maybe the camera operator doesn't want to provide his accurate GPS address, as it was happening to me, because maybe due to security, maybe due to I don't want anybody to see where I am, maybe they want to switch it off, and that is something you can do in the camera, to turn the GPS on or off, obviously. And that is almost everything related to the live to the live tab. Now let's go into two that are very, very similar. By the way, let me firstly shoot a couple of videos, because right now I can in fact upload them, and you will see now, for instance, in my screen, that there is in the upper side a little 2 number with an arrow. This means that there are 2 clips, now just one, that are being automatically uploaded into the server. That is what I was talking about. If you leave that in auto upload, automatically every time that you shoot a video, that proxy is uploaded into the server. Okay, let me stop this recording. Oh, stop. Okay, so now assets and transfer. Transfer means that I can take a look on each camera in order to see what is inside its card or cards. Okay, so for instance, now in the FX9, before this little speech, this little training, I was shooting 3 or 4 videos, so I can even see what is inside of the card. Obviously it takes a little time to buffer, but this is for me absolutely magical, because I can get access to any file that is recorded in the cards of the camera, meaning that now the cards are the backup of the system, because I can have the materials directly uploaded into the system, into the portal. Okay, so now, for instance, I could transfer that proxy, because I am watching the proxies, into our system, and now it is added to the job list. This is regarding this camera. Okay, so we can have access to different to the different clips that we have in that card, in the SD card. And now in the assets, you should see the different clips that I have recorded before. Maybe you remember I was recording with the Z280 little clips. So these are the clips that those are the ones that I recorded before, and those 2 are the ones that I was talking to you about a couple of minutes ago, that there was a 2 with a little arrow. Those are the ones. Okay, they have already been uploaded into the cloud, into the portal, but they are in SO3, as you can see here, format, meaning that it is a proxy file. It is not the high-res file. Let me go into the Z280, for instance, and you will see that I have those 5 clips. Remember, I shot 3 of them before and 2 during the speech. So for instance, this one, Maybe I want to do the proxy transfer, which is something very stupid because it has been automatically being done. But I can transfer the high-res file, and this is very, very important. Where to upload it to? To whatever FTP that I have assigned to my portal. Okay, by default I will use the C3 portal, and therefore now it is being added to the job list. After a few seconds I should see that asset, that clip, but now instead of inside of the card like here, in the asset list. And therefore I can upload all the files that I have in my cards, even in high res, to the portal. But that is something that you need to do, as you can see, manually. The high res files cannot be automatically uploaded into the system as it happens with the proxy files. Why? Because obviously the high-res files are much heavier than the proxy files. And if I am connecting via my smartphone or via a 4G dongle, then maybe my traffic capacity for the month potentially might be reduced if it is not unlimited. Okay, so now basically this is what I was trying to explain to you. There is also a new feature in the portal that we didn't have in the XDCAM configuration or features, which is apart from using a mobile phone as a dongle, we can use a mobile phone as a master for other mobile phones, which would be the slaves, and therefore I can split one file and each one of them would be uploading that part of the file in parallel, and thus we can maximize or minimize the time for uploading a clip. If one of them suddenly drops because there is no connection on him, we can balance the rest of the signal among all the mobile phones. But for that, obviously, you need the C3 portal application so that one of them can be the master and the other ones can be the slaves for that job. Thank you very much for taking a look on this video. I hope it was useful for you. Obviously, this is not a system for, let's say, everyone. If I am a freelance, what I need to know about my camera is that it is compatible with the system, and that's enough, because probably I'm not going to directly jump into this whole system. But for a broadcaster, a production house, local TV, this is something that can add a lot of value to your production, because you won't need to be delivering your cards into the ingest system. So thank you very much indeed, and hope this was useful. Thank you.